This is another Black Girl podcast. Black Girl. We're doing our best to make it last. This is another Black Girl podcast. We're doing our best to make it last. Another Black Girl podcast. Hey everyone, this is your podcaster in chief, Lauren, Lori, Laura, Renee. Some people call me that too. Doesn't really matter as long as you're referring to me. I just wanted to say that we made it through another week, which sometimes seems like an impossible task, even though all we have to do is exist. But I'm sorry to get so deep on y'all so early. This episode, we are going to be, I'm going to be talking to y'all about the best thing that happened to me all week. Let me pull up the clip. Hold on. I got y'all right now.
Very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Man, listen. I'll be the first one to tell you that I am not for Kamala the cop, also known as Kunmala or Kamala. Child, the DOJ she had over in Cali, like, I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm not for her. I'm not impressed, not with her. But you know what? Regardless, I hate to say it. It's like Hillary and Trump all over again. Now it's Trump and Biden. As much as I hate to say it, Biden will be getting my vote, along with Kamala the cop. In my greatest aspirations, I would be voting for Bernie, with maybe Elizabeth Warren as the VP. But you know, there's an old Southern proverb that says we got to turn our shit into sugar. And I think that's, again, what we got to do here. So, that debate, first of all, y'all know that I didn't watch the first one because I had to protect myself. I would have spiraled into oblivion after watching that first debate. So I didn't. And sometimes you got to know when to protect yourself and when to watch things that are terrible and will enrage you, I guess. So, knowing that this was going to be better, I watched the second one because at least Trump wasn't in it, thank God. So I watched it. And I just want to say, first of all, it's crazy that a fly has more shine than the platforms and policies that these candidates are running on. A fly. A literal fly. And y'all can't tell me that that man did not feel it. And wasn't there plexiglass around him? Like, I would have been looking in that plexiglass every 5 minutes, like, oh, is my hair okay? Is my lips okay? But you know, he's a cisgendered, heterosexual man. So maybe he didn't look in the plexiglass. Excuse me. Maybe he was just looking at Kamala the cop make all those faces at him. And in reviews of the debate, a lot of our friends over at Fox and C-SPAN and whatever other problematic network always came back to the fact that Kamala's her faces were very expressive, and Pence couldn't even focus on getting a sentence out because of her faces. Are we really going to attack the cop for making some of the same faces that our POS and chief be making at literally every function? Y'all gotta be kidding me. So anyways, I appreciated the way that the cop I appreciated the way the cop reiterated and always doubled back to the fact that she was speaking. And the morning after the debate, everyone hopped on their socials, especially Twitter, and was speaking about the reiteration that she was speaking and how important it was as a woman to reiterate that point to some men that might want to speak over you. And while all that's nice and good, I also saw a tweet. I can't remember exactly who it was from. My bad, I should have screenshotted it. But it basically said something along the lines of everybody wants to talk about Kamala, the cop, reiterating the fact that she was speaking, but not enough people were speaking about Susan. Susan was the moderator for the second debate, and clearly Susan, to me, Susan has some implicit bias because she let Pence fly. Like, I'm talking like, it would be like, oh, some large, overarching question. Like, Susan was given Miss Congeniality questions and then gave the cop 15 seconds to answer it, but gave Pence 2 minutes. Like, first of all, are we serious here? And Susan was an older white woman. So, I mean, this tweet that I saw was basically, it went on to call out the white women who made up the 53% who voted for Trump. And it proceeded to point our attention to all of the white women who are like Susan in the way that they allow and enable their cisgendered heterosexual men who are absolutely terrible to run rampant and to oppress everyone at large. And I mean, I see no lies there. Everybody talks about how terrible Trump and Pence are. Yes, Trump and Pence are bad, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we want them out. Yeah, we want all of the things. But in addition to that, we have to look at the Kaylee, who's the press secretary or something. There's Betsy DeVos. There's Kellyanne Conway. Like, there's Trump's Supreme Court pick. These are all white women who are complicit. Yes, we live in a patriarchal society, but it's also a society that holds up whiteness second. So if you're not a man, they'll look at you and say, hey, at least you're white. And in my experience, I've seen it to be true time and time and time again. So, to all of those who are cisgendered, heterosexual, like myself, make no mistake, I'm also calling myself out. But most importantly, over that, for all of those cis, het, white counterparts, maybe take a little extra time to examine the ways in which you might be complicit to this corrupt and unjust system. Maybe. What do I know? But going back to the importance of Kamala, or Kamala, reiterating the fact that she was speaking was so important because clearly anybody with eyes could see that it was not only man versus woman, but it was also BIPOC versus cishet white man. Cishet being cisgendered heterosexual, BIPOC meaning black, indigenous, person of color. When we look at these situations, it is more than just gender identities and sexual preferences that inform it. It's also race. And here is where we get back to our favorite word, intersectionality. And I would be completely remiss if I did not point that out. Oftentimes in corporate spaces, politics, and even more mundane social settings, cishet white men are given the floor, given the free range to act the fool, given the grounds to do whatever they want and speak over whoever they want and calmly state lies as if they were facts. So I'm glad that this was captured in live television, essentially. So many times Black women are spoken over and ostracized and demonized for simply stating the fact that they were not done with what they were saying. And I mean, watching that debate and watching the cop reiterate the fact that she was speaking so many times brought me back to a place in college in which I felt silenced by my cisgendered, heterosexual, white counterparts, peers, professors, whatever. There were times where I felt silenced. There were times where I felt like I couldn't even get a sentence out for whatever reason. And then as soon as I actually granted myself the space and the time to fully explicate the things and the desires of my heart and the things that were on my mind, I was deemed as aggressive, a bully, bossy, and you can fill in any of the other profane expletives that come to mind. But so often, women, and specifically Black women, take the time that is often granted to our masculine counterparts, and we are seen as bossy, demanding, angry, aggressive, and especially our Black women. This is something that has to change, and I'm not saying that I like either of them. If I had to choose, I would choose the Biden-Harris ticket. Because in every debate, they attempt to provide a competent and comprehensive argument with actual facts and not just calmly stated lies. They are more qualified. But this time, in 4 years, God willing, if Bernie runs and makes it through, Bernie's gonna have my vote. But for now, it has to be Biden-Harris, and that's the only way. That is honestly the only way I see it. But that's not the point. We're not getting into who I'm voting for, even though y'all already know, because you know the vibes. I have nothing to hide. But the importance of this episode is always giving yourself the grace to fully flesh out the thought or the sentence or the idea or whatever it is that your heart has to say. Because it's important. Even if the example for this episode was from Kamala the cop, who's incarcerated and preyed on hella Black people on the West Coast. But you know, you didn't hear it from me. So yeah, we're going to move on to the next segment in a second. But I just wanted to say, if you wanted to actually do the work and not have flies land on your head at some of the most important times in your life because you're such a steaming pile of crap, if you wanted to do the work and not wind up like that, it would be a great time to buy my Decca Affirmations workbook. It takes a deep dive into the affirmations from the first 10 episodes. It is about 40 pages and it retails for about $15 on www.anotherbg.com. I would be so grateful if you took this opportunity to head over to my website, check it out, purchase it, affirm your highest self, and set some positive intentions with me and give me feedback on the special section of my website titled Contact Me, I believe it is. You can drop your email, your pronouns, your name, and whatever feedback you have. It can be anything from the theme song of this podcast all the way to my Instagram aesthetic. I don't care as long as it's feedback because I love to hear from you. So stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned into another Black Girl podcast. This is episode 12, and we've gotten through the bulk of the episode, I guess, and now it's just time for some affirmation, so let's get into it. This week's affirmation is, I am grateful for my voice. Oftentimes, a lot of people feel as if they do not have a voice. They feel like they cannot speak. And I'm not saying all of the time, and of course, every experience is different, but in my experience of voicelessness or constriction came from myself. Those were the boxes and constraints and parameters that I found myself putting on myself. Granted, some of those parameters were put on me and imposed by society, and therefore I imposed it on myself as a means of protection and awareness of the country and society that I did live in. But, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of that voicelessness and constriction came from myself, and when I truly started to release my voice and give myself the grace to say the things that I really, really wanted to say, is when I recognized that I've been the person who has been silencing myself the most. And that can take form in a multitude of ways in each person's individual life. But as we are grateful for our voices, look for ways in which you might have silenced yourself. Look for ways in which you might have cut your voice short or stopped your sentence right before you got to the point. Be mindful of those things. Take them into account and then stop doing it because what you have to say is valuable and important. And someone in the world needs to hear it. What you say is valuable and important. And someone in the world needs to hear it. And honestly, maybe it's just you sometimes, and that's okay. But you never know who is out there listening to every last word. You never know who's hanging on every sentence that you say. You never know who needs to hear the exact thing you're about to say. So don't sell yourself cheap. Don't cut yourself short. You are necessary. The things that you say are necessary. And I am so grateful for you. I am so grateful for your voice. I am so grateful for the time that you spend with me on another Black Girl podcast. I am so grateful for all of the feedback that you've provided on the website, anotherbg.com. And I look forward to our conversations together. Till next time, this is your host, Lauren, Lori, Laura, whoever. I don't really care. Whatever. And I'll be catching you next time. As always, I love you, I believe in you, and I am so grateful for your presence. Have a great week. Bye. This is another Black Girl podcast. Black Girl. We're doing our best to make it last. This is another Black Girl podcast. Black Girl. We're doing our best to make it last. Another Black Girl podcast.